Yes, it's the first weekend of December, believe it or not, already as we come down the stretch of the NFL season. It is already week 13 in the league. And Nick, I tell you, we've been waiting a while for this because there are a lot of great games. There are a lot of storylines entering this week. So I think we are in for one heck of a week. And I think a week where that it was very difficult to pick games. I was looking over Hank's picks and mine, and we are different a lot this week. So definitely a way to see some changes in the standings. Right now, I have a 4-game lead over Hank, but I mean anything is possible. But I know you were looking forward to this week because you've got a big game. I've got a big game. There are a lot of big games in general, and of course, a game with a huge storyline that we're going to get to as well. Hank and I are both off to a good start, by the way, because we did take the Bills on Thursday night over the New England Patriots, so already starting on the winning end. But Nick, this is going to be an interesting week. I think you and I are going to differ a lot. I just had that weird feeling because I went in a weird direction. But are you ready to do these picks?
Yeah, and I think you guys will be surprised. Usually I'm not the one to go off the straight path, but I'm going to do that quite a bit this week.
Well, it's one of those weeks. I mean, there's a way. I was leaning one way, and then I went another way, and I ultimately made a decision. So we'll find out what we can do here as we enter Week 13, the first weekend of December in the National Football League. And let's get it rolling here for Week 13. And Nick, it's an Andrew Catalon, James Lofton special on CBS as the Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons, and kind of a pick 'em in this one as the Falcons are 1-point favorites.
Again, you're going to see this trend throughout the whole picks. There's a ton of 1-point spreads. For most people who don't understand, if you're watching these for the first time, anything 3 or below is considered a pick'em game, which means it's a crapshoot, which means it can go either way. This is a battle of semi-awful to awful teams. Even though I've been on the record quite a few times saying Marcus Mariota has played way better than we all expected. Kenny Pickett is going through the growing pains as a starting quarterback. I don't know. I mean, I think I picked the Steelers when we did empty the bench, but now I'm not sure anymore. So I guess in the crapshoot sake of under 3, I'm going to take the Falcons. I just think I got to take them to cover at 1.
Yeah, this was one of those games that I did go back and forth on, and it's actually a big game for the Falcons when you look at that NFC South and how lousy it is. But when you look at the Steelers the last couple of weeks, they're 2-1 since their bye week, and their defense has stabilized now with the return of TJ Watt. But you're going up against a Falcons team that obviously has a lot to play for. They are as consistent really as any team in football when you look at it at how they play, both offensively and defensively. And both of these teams go down to the wire in terms of the way they play. But I hate to say this, I'm taking the team that's quarterback is playing better and more consistent right now, or lately, I should say, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So give me the Steelers pretty much in a pick 'em to win against the Falcons. And Hank is also going to take the Steelers to get us going here on Sunday, but certainly a spot that the Falcons can win too. It's again, it's one of those games that's so tricky, but I think I'm going to roll with the team whose defense I also trust a little bit more, and that is Pittsburgh's.
It's just a horrible division. I mean, who would have thought 5-6 on top of the NFC South was going to be first place for the Bucs?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And if the Bucs end up losing on Monday night to the Saints, I mean, that's going to create something. That's what I'm saying. If everything goes right here, the Falcons could be in first place once again by Tuesday morning. We'll find out. The Panthers are on their bye week this week, and they're going to come out of it with a big one. So the NFC South definitely worth watching here as we come down the stretch. But Nick originally, I think you did take Pittsburgh. I know you're going to take Atlanta here. Hank and I are both going to roll with the Steelers in game number 1. It's Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins on CBS as Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens coming off that brutal loss at the hands of the Jaguars last week, Nick. And those Ravens are 9.5-point favorites.
Now, I think there's a multitude of factors going into this game. One, it's Broncos country. Let's ride. We don't win games that we're supposed to win. 2, the Ravens are going to be really angry coming into this game the way they lost to the Jaguars. Give credit to the Jaguars for the way they played down the stretch. That touchdown in the right corner of the end zone, which they had to replay about 500 million times until they got it correct. He actually got his 2 feet in somehow. And then being gutsy enough to go for the 2-point conversion to end that game. So I don't know if I can 100% blame that on the Ravens play calling. I think that was just the Jaguars down the stretch playing better football. Yeah, the Ravens are going to come out. I think they're going to be so angry this week. They're going to put a pummeling on the Broncos. I would take the money and cover.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. I don't think there's a spot here where the Ravens are going to have a fourth quarter collapse like they've had against the Jaguars, against a lot of teams this year. And the reason why in weeks past I would have actually taken the Broncos getting points here is their defense, but not in the last couple of weeks. Their defense has also turned south in addition to their offense, which has been just sour all season, especially, their defense, especially since the Bradley Chubb trade. Yeah, I don't see here. Ravens defense is still good. It just has a tough time closing out games, but I don't think that's going to be a problem here unless you're worried about the backdoor cover. Baltimore minus 9.5. That's going to be the play for me here in Baltimore. Hank's also going to roll with the Ravens, laying the 9.5 in game 2. It's an Adam Amin, Mark Schler with Christina Pink special on Fox. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers travel to Chicago to take on what looks like it's going to be Justin Fields and the Bears, and the Packers a 3.5-point favorite, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, we've been discussing this for weeks across our 2 shows. Aaron Rodgers is a wild card. We have no idea what the heck we're going to get out of Aaron Rodgers. He did get hurt with a second injury last week. I mean, obviously, he came out and said he's been playing with a broken thumb since week 5. Now he's got a rib injury to boot. They lost on, Monday Night Football to the Eagles 40-33? Or Sunday night?
Yep.
They lost on Sunday night to the Eagles 40-33. By the way, who expected 73 points to be scored in Sunday Night Football? No one did.
No. I'll put my hand down.
Yeah, put your hand down. You're lying. I'm actually confused on this line a little bit because of the way the Packers have been playing. Why isn't Vegas treating this the same way as they're treating some of the other games? If that was the case, then the Bears should be the favorite, right? The way they've been, Packers have been playing.
I think they're looking at the matchup, and I'll tell you if you want me to go first here. The Packer offense actually, it's looked a little bit better in recent weeks. Christian Watson's definitely come along here these last couple of weeks to help that out. But I'll tell you why. And by the way, talking about Rodgers real quick, I mean, it looks like he's going to play. That's what it looks like as a Friday. We know that thumb injury, which actually is worse than what he originally said. Now he's got the rib problem, but Rodgers is saying it's better. Now, again, that's him saying that. We'll find out what happens here. But the reason why I think the Packers are favored and why I rarely say this, I love them in this matchup, is their offense has been improving. And we look at the Bears defense. I mean, since guys like Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn got traded away, their defense is dead last pretty much since that trade. And
they're stripping it for parts. That's what they're basically doing right now.
Yeah, so I think actually this is a spot here where the Packers, we all know Aaron Rodgers loves playing Chicago. I think this is actually a kind of a get-right game, and I think the Packers could put up a good amount of points in this one. And I just don't know how effective, even with Justin Fields, how effective he's really going to be.
With that separated shoulder that he's been playing with.
Yeah, and Trevor Siemian, actually, their backup who got hurt, he's actually now out for the season. It was reported on Friday. So,
hello, Nathan Peterman.
God, Nathan Peterman starts the game. The Packers will win by 30. I mean, that's saying something. Yeah, I'm taking Green Bay, by the way, Nick, to win and cover. That's my play here.
I mean, I was just curious, just because the way Vegas makes their standards for games, it's odd where they pick and choose their moments to make the lines. But you really think I'm going to go after the Bears after I got screwed completely? Think that they were going to beat the Jets? Absolutely not. You're right. Take the cover on the Packers.
I think it's going to be something very similar to what Mike White and the Jets were able to do last week here. I mean, the only difference is maybe since the game's in Chicago, it's a little different. But again, Green Bay's offense not been that bad the last couple of weeks. I mean, they did put up 33 last week against the Eagles, even though they lost. So that's why I think it's going to continue, especially against this Bears defense.
That was a battle of the juggernauts. And by the way, wasn't it in Chicago where Aaron Rodgers had that whole moment with the crowd saying he owned Chicago?
Yep. I think he's going to do it again here. So give me Green Bay to win and cover in Chicago. And you got Green Bay?
Yeah.
And Hank's also taking the Packers here in this spot in Chicago in game number 3. It is a Chris Myers, Robert Smith, and Jen Hale special on the NFL on Fox. One of the tougher games for me to pick this week, Nick. The Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Detroit to take on those Lions. And this game is swung back and forth. And again, it's pretty much a pick 'em. As of right now, the Jaguars, they are a 1-point favorite.
First of all, my rule of thumb for this year, you can't favor the Jaguars for any game this year. Sorry, they're not good enough to be favored in any game. I get it. I understand they've been playing a little bit better. But the Lions, I think and Hank has especially been on record with the Lions all year. The Lions are the better team in this matchup. Amon St. Brown looked amazing last week during Thanksgiving. He's coming around. I said it that they need to do everything in their power to keep this guy on that team for the long term. They have to. Lions upset.
Yeah, it's a 1-point line. I mean, it's kind of disrespectful when you look at the way Detroit's playing. Let's also remember, too, Detroit's defense very quietly these last few weeks has been playing very, very well, too. But I think it's going to be fun because now Trevor Lawrence has been playing great. Lions defense I'd say both of these teams are improving to average. The problem that they both have also, which is why it's a cool game, they both have a tough time finishing out games. And so that's why this is going to be fascinating. I agree with you, though. I am going to take the Lions to win this game. I think it's going to be very, very close. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the Lions are going to do it. I think they're actually, if you look at it, I think the Lions rebuild is actually further along than the Jaguars are.
I agree with you. I would also say this is the battle of the aggressive head coaches also, because there's a tendency with Dan Campbell and why am I forgetting the Eagles' former head coach?
Doug Peterson.
Doug Peterson. Two of the most aggressive coaches in all the NFL. I think Doug Peterson has turned into Mike Tomlin going for the 2-point conversion every time it comes up.
Yeah, I said on social media last week, at first glance, because I was watching this game live and I tweeted it, and as it happened, I loved Jacksonville going for 2 in that spot. Even if they didn't pull it off, I love that idea that they were doing. They weren't playing for much, and really, if anything, what they could have done was almost spoil the Ravens in some ways when you look at the Bengals and what's going on with them, too.
It was a gutsy call in every way.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's where we also give the Chargers the credit, too, which I don't know if I ever would have given Brandon Staley credit before in my life, but we did. But, yeah, so all 3 of us are going to take the Lions over the Jaguars in what should be a very, very intriguing game over there at Ford Field in Detroit. Well, this game's intriguing for storylines, Nick. Spiro, Jay, and Aditi on the NFL on CBS as Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns travel to Houston to take on his old team, the Houston Texans, and the Browns, a touchdown road favorite.
I'm so angry about this game in every way, shape, or form. I said it on Empty the Bench. Hank and I discussed it a little bit on Review and Preview. Not looking forward to this game at all. I don't care. Obviously, the NFL is going to do everything in their power to promote this game because it's Deshaun Watson and it's against the Texans. And oh my God. And like all over Twitter, like every prominent national reporter was at the practice watching the footballs, which, by the way, that makes no sense to me when they do that whole thing. As much as I want to pick the Texans to win, I can't do it. The Texans are such a bad team in every way, shape, or form. And I don't care if it's Kyle Allen or the Davis Mills experience. I could care less. You got to pick the Browns. But the one thing I will say as a caveat that maybe could affect the game, Deshaun Watson hasn't had pad-to-pad action in 2 years. Okay? Yeah. So I think that's a big deal. You could go to the practice facility and throw footballs all you want. It's not playing real football. But unfortunately, I have to take them to cover because in this matchup, they're the better team.
Against any other opponent that the Browns would have faced here, I'd be going the other way. But it's the Texans. I mean, they are the worst team in football by a mile right now. And also, yeah, Deshaun's going to be rusty. There's no doubt. But let's look at this matchup here. The Texans have the worst run defense in the league. So Deshaun may only need to throw the ball dare I say, 15 to 20 times at most in this game.
Yeah, but he is the throwing quarterback. Remember that. He's not really a pass the buck type quarterback.
And can you imagine like the first series that he gets, he's going to try and take a couple of deep shots.
Of course he is. And by the way, the other headline of this game as well, disgraced lawyer, in my opinion, Tony Busby, is bringing some of the women into a suite to watch the game. And I'll never understand what his deal or what he's trying to accomplish with that whole situation. That's just putting more negative attention on the NFL than they really need.
Well, I think that's going to get drowned out because there's a lot of good matchups in the early window as well as the late window that we'll be talking about too. I know you and me and the guys, and also Tom and Nick and Hank as well. I remember when we did the breaking news show 13 weeks ago, 13 whatever it was, when the verdict came, when they agreed to the settlement, and we were looking to this game for the longest time, and now it's here. And yeah, I don't know as far as the game itself, like what it's going to matter. I am going to take the Browns to win and cover here, and that's hard to do, laying 7 on the road here. But again, it's the Texans and their run defense. It's a very poor run defense. So I think Nick Chubb will do well. And again, Watson, I would probably say 15 to 20 throws at most he's going to make in this one, in his first game in a very, very long time. He's going to be rusty, and yeah, he's going to take some shots as well. But
how many boos do you think you're going to hear at, what is it, NRG Stadium in Texas?
I think when that kickoff happens to the Browns and they get the ball, or whenever their first possession is going to be, and he steps foot on that field immediately, it is going to be, well, I don't know if I'm going to say deafening, because I don't know if they're going to sell out because it's the Texans. That's the thing too. So it'll be loud though, for sure.
I think you're going to hear a drown out. I really do. I think like it's going to be impossible to focus in that game.
Would you say this game's going to be a sellout though?
Not going to be a sellout, but I think it's going to be more than they've had all year.
That's a good point. I'll go with that. Yeah. Cleveland, though, minus the 7 in Houston. That's what I'm going to go with. Hank's also going to take the Browns. So once again, all three of us are in agreement as the Browns win and cover against the worst team in the NFL. Nick, it's an Iron Eagle, Charles Davis, Evan Washburn special on the NFL and CBS as your New York Jets with Mike White travel to Minnesota to take on Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. And it's the Vikings who are a 3-point home favorite.
See, I never heard the official status of the quarterback. I guess they are going with Mike White, even though they were Robert Saleh said, "Oh, well, we don't know who our quarterback is." Stop it! You knew it was going to be Mike White the whole time. It's going to be Mike White for the whole rest of the season if you want to have a job in the NFL. Still, we discussed this on Review and Preview, Hank and I, and believe it or not, I might be crazy here, but I took the Jets to win the outright here. And the reason is I think the defense is great. And now that Mike White is installed into this offense where he's going to take chances, you're not going to have the issues as much. If the Vikings go out and score a touchdown or two, he's going to take more chances. The offense looks better. Garrett Wilson is a star in the making as a wide receiver for the Jets. The one issue you're going to run into is Justin Jefferson. This guy who's a top 2, I think it's Diggs, and then I think it's Jefferson for top 2 wide receivers this year. You got to contain him. You're going to have to play a lot of zone because you're not going to be able to play cover 2 on any of these guys because they have way too many weapons between Jefferson and Thielen. And then you also have Hawkinson, who they acquired from the Lions. They have a lot of weapons, but I think the Jet defense can play them out.
I think it's actually twofold. It's not only that the Jets can definitely throw in this pass defense of the Vikings, but Christian Darrisaw being out for the Vikings, that is a huge advantage to the Jets pass rush and the ability to get to Kirk Cousins as well. And there's a reason why the Vikings at 9-2 only have a +5 point differential for the season here.
That makes no sense, by the way.
Well, a lot of that though is also because of the 40-3 blowout at the hands of the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. And let's also remember too, there's a good passing team too in the Cowboys. So I think Mike White's going to be able to do this. I don't see this game on either side being a blowout. I think at most you're looking at maybe a 10-point win for either team, but I think this is another good matchup for Mike White, to have another good game here for the Jets. And I think the Jets pass rush, which they finally have had one, which it seems like forever since we've been able to say that from Gang Green's side. I think it gets to Kirk Cousins and gives him some problems. I think Cousins will still be able to make some good plays here to Hawkinson and to Jefferson as well. But this to me has like 31. I think the Jets could put up 31 points again. I think it has something like 31-24 written on it. I'm going to take the Jets in an upset special. Yes, it will be an upset special for me. I'd almost be more. I wish it would get to 3.5, but I understand why it's not going to. But yeah, Jets upset special. That's the play for me here against the Vikings. But Hank's going to roll with Minnesota laying the 3. So there's our first difference. And folks, get used to that because there's going to be a bunch of them coming up here in these next couple of picks. Hank's going Minnesota minus the 3 against the Jets here as well. And maybe this is another very, very close game and the Vikings can pull it out. But you know what? Maybe Hank's going with the Kirk Cousins checklist. Game's not in prime time. Game's not.
He just won a game in prime time, though.
Well, we were in too much of a food coma, though, to realize that on Thanksgiving night.
That's a good point. But wait a minute. You have to give him credit on some front. He did win a primetime game.
He did.
And by the way, the over-under combined in the Jets-Minnesota game, 44.5 points combined. I think you can hit the over on that one. I really do.
Yeah, I think a couple of games hit the over. I think the Jaguars-Lions game is one that's going to be in the 50s, and I think the Jets and the Vikings are going to be in the 50s for sure. So I would take the Jets plus the 3 in an upset special. I would grab the over if we were to do an over-under wager here too. Yeah, give me the Jets plus the 3 and take the over against the Minnesota Vikings. Nick, it's a Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, Shannon Spake special on Fox. A huge NFC East matchup as Taylor Heineke and the Washington Commanders take on Daniel Jones and my New York Football Giants. And it's the Commanders who are a 2.5-point road favorite.
See, I was saying to you before we started here, I thought this was wrong by Vegas in a lot of ways. I understand the Giants lost their last 2 games and they didn't play great. Obviously, the Lions was a trap game. You lost to the Cowboys. I think there was some fundamental issues in the Cowboy game, to be honest. Brian Dabble going for it on 4th down in Giant territory, not even being at midfield. I thought that was a problem too. Not that takes away anything from him. He's been really good at and should be a top candidate for Coach of the Year, in my opinion. But I think this is wrong because the Commanders are a very up and down team. And again, this would obviously be in the pick'em category with 3 or less. But I'm taking the Giants. I think the Giants are due after losing 2 games. They have to win this game. Have to. They don't win this game, I think they're jeopardizing their chances of making either a playoff run or even the division is pretty much gone, in my opinion, at this point. But they have to win. They have a huge stretch of games coming up here. So they have to win these divisional games. I'm taking the Giants to upset.
Yeah, see, number one, I'm going to disagree with you. I think this line is actually right. The Commanders have been playing very, very well here these last several weeks. The Giants, these last 2 weeks, have been a struggle. Number one, it starts off with the fact that Saquon Barkley has not been himself the last 2 weeks. And I think part of that is you have to credit the defenses of both the Lions and the Cowboys. And you know what? This is a matchup too. And the Giants have had some extra time off, and it looks like they're going to get some reinforcements back. They were reporting as many as 14 people could be back for the Giants who either did not play or were hurt and missed some time against the Cowboys that could be back here against the Commanders. But the problem is this Commanders defense, I think, is going to give Saquon Barkley more problems again. And that, to me, is a major problem. Now, the Giants have done more with less at receiver than any other team. But now even those guys are starting to be out. Like, I think the Wan'Dale Robinson injury is a huge blow here for the Giants because he was just starting to get into form when he went down there against the Lions a couple of weeks ago. But, yeah, this to me, though, it's a problem. You know what? Even if you want to say it's by luck, Heineke's been doing the job there in Washington. And I guess he's due at some point, but I'm laying less than a field goal. I know it's on the road, but I'm nervous about this game as a fan. That's the thing. But as an analyst, to me, I think the Commanders are playing better. And maybe timing has something to do with this too. So I'm taking the Commanders to win this game, even if it's by a field goal. against the Giants, but I hope I'm wrong. But if you're a Giants fan like I am, Saquon's it really comes down to Saquon. You know what? That if he can't get going again, then that forces Daniel Jones to have to air out the ball more and get more aggressive, roll out and stuff. It's tough against this defense to do that. Look at that defense, how they played against Atlanta last week. I could be more of the same here too, but we'll find out. I have been wrong before. The Giants have been, underdogs a lot this year, and they've pulled it out. They're going to need to do that again here, and hopefully they will. But as an analyst, I just don't see it happening. I'm taking the Commanders to win and cover. But Hank's going to roll with you, Nick. He does have the Giants plus the 2.5 at MetLife Stadium, and we'll see. But if Saquon Barkley cannot get going again, then it's going to be another rough afternoon over there at MetLife for the Giants.
I could see this coming down to a field goal, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and you know what? If this is tied, and you know what, if that could be, maybe the Giants lose by 2 and you win that way. But yeah, it could be really close too. I mean, the Commanders have played a lot of close games as well. It could come down to who has the ball last. Absolutely. I don't think either team is talented enough right now in this matchup can win this game going away. I don't think it's going to be like that. I'd be surprised if it would be.
This is going to be back and forth. Who can hold the last defensive possession?
Yeah, we'll find out as it's a big one there in the NFC East. Another good game happening on Sunday in the early window. It's a Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Andrews, and the traveling Tom Rinaldi special on the NFL on Fox as the Tennessee Titans travel down over to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. And, Nick, the Eagles are laying 4.5 at home.
By the way, can we put an odometer on Tom Rinaldi at this point? I mean, that man is probably one of the hardest working sideline reporters in all of sports.
I mean, his travel, what were they saying? His travel, I'm trying to think of the word.
He's probably put in like over 10,000 miles. If I had to take a guess.
It's crazy. I've got Kenny Albert with on the Giant game, and he's doing 5 games in 4 days in 3 different sports. And then we have Tom on the sideline doing what he's been doing. It's just crazy. We love our crews in all sports. Yeah.
And by the way, I know we don't talk about this very often. We don't give the announcers enough credit for the amount of you don't really see one sport announcers anymore. Like that's really not a thing. Now you see people doing baseball and football in season, and now you're seeing everyone cross across the sports. So Tom Rinaldi deserves his due because he's been traveling from Qatar back to do college football, back to Qatar, and now doing NFL. This man never stops working.
Absolutely. He loves doing it, though, and we love doing it, too. So
right. So now to this game, I know you were saying to me earlier that you think the Titans can be competitive in this game against the Eagles. And I've been the one to say the last couple of weeks, the Titans deserve a little more respect than they've been getting. But they really only have one offensive option right now at this point, in my opinion, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
They don't really have receivers. Ryan Tannehill, who I would know from being in the same division for as many years when he was with the Dolphins, he's beatable. He's always been beatable. And the Eagles are just much better team. They're destined to make a deep run. I'm taking the Eagles to cover.
Yeah, see, I wasn't high on Tennessee to start the year, and they've definitely proven me wrong. They've been playing a lot better. But you know what? Here's the reason why I'm taking Tennessee plus the 4.5. I'm not going to say they're going to win this game in an upset special, but I'm going to grab the points. I think it's going to be a field goal game. They can run. Obviously, we know they can run with Derrick Henry, and that's something that Philadelphia can't do, and it's something that Philadelphia can't stop either. And so I think that this is a spot here. If Henry has some huge runs, one thing Tennessee can do, they can control the clock in this one and keep the ball out of Jalen Hurts, and Tannehill can put some long drives together and stifle that defense. And also the Titans play a lot of low-scoring games, so that's something to watch here too. I will say this though: the other matchup I'm looking for in this one, Tennessee's defensive line against this Philadelphia offensive line. They're going to square off, and this Eagles running attack is going to face its biggest test. And again, their leaky run defense, something to watch here too. Something along the lines, I think the Eagles win this game by a field goal, so I'm going to take Tennessee plus the 4.5 in Philadelphia. And let's see, Hank here is also going to grab the Titans plus the 4.5. I don't think he's got an upset special, but I think he's got them to cover, but Philadelphia to win the game.
My question is, can the Titans stop Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, who've probably been the best combo quarterback wide receiver all year, in my opinion? That's going to be tough to stop.
I agree. And the other thing, though, too, is with Philadelphia now, 3 weeks in a row that they have played some very close. Well, they haven't looked their best. I mean, their last 2 games, they've played very, very close against the Colts and against the Packers there on Sunday night. So it could be a spot here where they're getting them at a good time, too. But I just don't think they have enough to beat Philadelphia. But I think they have enough to keep it very close with Philadelphia. So that's what I'm going to roll with here. Tennessee plus the 4.5 to wrap up the early window on Sunday. Nick, it's a Kevin Kugler, Mark Sanchez, Laura Oakman special there on the NFL on Fox. It's Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks taking on John Wolford and the Los Angeles Rams. And you wonder how I sigh when I say John Wolford. Oh, how I feel for Kevin, Mark, and Laura. Anyway, Kevin, Mark, and Laura have this one, and the Seahawks, a touchdown road favorite.
Yeah, this one doesn't take much thought. It's Seattle cover.
Now, I don't know why, as much as Bryce Perkins, was in a very tough spot last week. Now, it looks like from some of the reporting that they actually might be using both of them on Sunday.
You know what Hank says? When you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0.
Yeah, I think the only team in the NFL that has actually used that successfully has been the Saints to go with that 2 quarterback system. But gosh, all the injuries that the Rams have, in fact, it was a crazy stat. The amount of money that is on the injury report.
I don't even want to know. It's probably nuts.
It's insane here. I'm going to see if I can pull this up here real quick. But yeah, I mean, there's really not much to break down in this game. The being on the road against the Rams to me is not a big deal. So
this is not going to be close, in my opinion.
The funny thing is, remember earlier in the season, Seattle traveled to SoFi to take on the Chargers, and they disposed of them easily. So, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull this up because maybe I don't have it, but it's a ton of money. I mean,
I'm sure that Matt Stafford is probably the highest total on that.
Here we go. Okay, so Stafford making $40 million, he's out. Aaron Donald 31.6 out. Cooper Kupp, $26.7 million, out. Allen Robinson, $15.5 million, out. Left tackle Joseph Noteboom, $13.3 million, out. Defensive tackle Ashawn Robinson, $8.5 million. So those guys are all out or expected to be out against the Rams. And you know what? Maybe the only thing you worry about with the Seahawks is their running game here, which has gone bust in 3 of the last 4 games. And maybe not getting much of a pass rush, but I mean, it's John Wolford. I mean, he's the way this looks. I just don't see John Wolford surviving this whole game.
This is going to be ugly, in my opinion.
Not going to be pretty. I mean, fortunately, there's other games in the late window, but yeah, I think Seattle wins this game by 10. Give me Seattle to win and cover. But like I said, Hank and I are going to differ a lot. Here's another one. He's taking the Rams plus the 7 against Seattle.
What?
Well, I think he's taking the Rams to cover, but Seattle to win. So maybe something like a backdoor cover in that spot. But
against John Wolford?
I hate to say this. I think he might have done this before it was determined that John Wolford was starting.
You know what? When we're done with this, I would go check with him on that.
Stay tuned, folks. That's what I'll say. But maybe trying to avoid this game in total, maybe that's the play.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
But we don't have that option here on Game On. We have to pick every game. So Seattle minus the 7 for me. Hank plus the 7 with the Rams. Nick, it's a Joe Davis, Daryl Moose Johnston, Pam Oliver special on Fox. One of the games of the week, maybe the game of the week. It's Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo. And the Niners are a 4-point home favorite.
Finally, they matched the broadcasting crew with the big game for a change. Seems like they've been really not doing a good job of that over the first 12 to 13 weeks. Yeah, this is... I would say that this game should have been flexed into prime time this week, or the Jets Vikings, like you had said, should have been in prime time. I don't understand what the NFL schedulers were doing, but that's neither here nor there at this point. The Niners are are better defensively, and the Dolphins are better offensively. That's how I look at it. Even though the Niners have gotten better since CMC was brought into the fold and made their running attack much better, and obviously with an RPO options with him, they can do the same thing. But the Dolphins offense is really good. I mean, between Hill and Waddle, and I even like Jeff Wilson.
Yep.
Like
Mike Gesicki, tight end too. Yeah.
So this was a tough one. I think I went Dolphins upset in this situation, just from what I remember, because I just Tua is 8-0 in games that he's finished this year. Just think about that wacky stat.
Nick, fun fact there. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm going to take the upset. I think the Dolphins could win. I really do.
Hanks also got the Dolphins plus minus the. I'm sorry, he's got him plus the 4. I've been high on the Dolphins all season, Nick. I think this is not a good matchup for them, though. And going up against this 49ers defense, there's a couple of things here. Number one, I'm actually a little worried about Tua surviving this game because for a few reasons. A, that Niners defense. Number two, he's got 2 offensive linemen who are both doesn't look like they're going to be playing. Teron Armstead, that's a big loss if he's not playing. And there's also another offensive guy who's been ruled out that I think it's a big deal. And the biggest weakness of the 4 units is the Dolphins defense. And so I think this is actually a game where I think their offense is going to have a reality check in this one. So I'm only laying 4 points. And yeah, and you know what? Let's also remember too, Mike McDaniel going back there to San Francisco. I think the 49ers will know that. I think they'll know how to game plan for this one. I'm taking San Francisco, even though the better quarterback to me and the better offense is with the Dolphins. I think this defense for the 49ers will stifle them and give a reality check. I'm taking San Francisco minus the 4 in San Francisco. So give me the 49ers to win and cover there in this one. Also, another great game of the week. It's Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and a Tracy Wolfson special on the NFL and CBS. A rematch of the postseason as Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs travel to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And Nick, the Chiefs are a 1.5 favorite on the road.
Yeah, I said this to you beforehand also. I don't think this line is big enough, in my opinion. And I think the Chiefs are going to win this game pretty soundly, in my opinion. I know Jamar Chase is back, but Jamar Chase has been out. How many weeks has Jamar Chase been out now?
It's been quite a few now.
So, and also the chemistry between him and Burrow has not been good all year. It has not. I don't know what's going on there. They need to figure out their issues because it's not working this year. And also Patrick Mahomes is playing like the MVP this year. I think he's probably going to win the MVP the way he's playing right now. It's between him and Hurts, I think. But yeah, this was my lock on empty the bench. Chiefs win, and I think they're going to win by a touchdown at least.
Well, it looks like Jamar's back. Joe Mixon looks like he's going to be back.
He had a concussion, right?
Yes, he was in concussion protocol. I think he's been cleared. It looks like he's going to play too.
Just barely, from what I heard.
But the pass protection for Burrow has been better. And the thing that concerns me is the Cincinnati secondary and the fact that if you were going to try, and you've brought this line up before too, if they're going to try and play a shootout with Kansas City, it's not going to be ideal. But I'll tell you what, Kansas City is going to lose another game at some point this year. And I think there's a good chance that Burrow, even, you saw what he did last week, even without Chase. I think Chase being back there helps. I think Cincinnati's got something going. And also one other thing too that was not talked about enough this week. Justin Reed, the safety for the Chiefs, giving the Bengals some more hype with his comments. To me, upset special. I'm taking Cincinnati to win this game outright, and Joe Burrow will remain undefeated against Patrick Mahomes. And if this ends up being a shootout, that'll be the thing that concerns me. But I like both of Cincinnati's lines here the last couple of weeks, too. Their offensive and defensive line. I think it keeps it going here, too. Cincinnati plus 1.5. That's what I'm rolling with here in the late window. But Hank's going to agree with you. He does like Kansas City to win and cover. And again, maybe only laying 1.5 here helps, too, if Cincinnati, if KC wins this game by a field goal. But, yeah, we'll find out what happens here. But Hank and I are both going to differ on this one here, too. Let's go upset special. Cincinnati plus 1.5 is the play. It's Greg Gumbel, Adam Archuleta, and AJ Ross on the NFL and CBS as the Chargers take on the Raiders. A back and forth line here, too. And the Raiders right now, they're laying a point at home.
Again, this line makes no sense to me whatsoever. The Chargers are the better team. I know they have injuries. I think Mike Williams is out again. But obviously, I like Herbert over Carr. That's not even a discussion. That's not even a debate. It's not even a fair debate. Devontae Adams has not been great all year, and I don't see that turning around anytime soon. I don't understand this line. Chargers +1.
Mike Williams, by the way, their wide receiver is out.
Yeah, that as I said, I think he's out. So it doesn't matter. The Raiders are not a good team at all. So Chargers +1.
Josh Jacobs, can he duplicate what he did last week? That would be the biggest question mark. In terms of teams with the coaches, I mean, again, that's neutral in this one. I tell you, Mike Williams being out. See, the thing with the Chargers, they can't have a full team together out on the field. It's 13 weeks, and we're still waiting to have their full potential out there. I think the Raiders have a little bit more momentum going into this one, coming off their win last week. And let's remember, you know what? Maybe they're starting to get a little bit of strike going because we know their win against the Broncos there in overtime a couple of weeks back there in Denver, then last week in Seattle out. I'm taking the Raiders to win. And again, the point doesn't matter here. Just give me Give me the team that's got right now the more consistent offense, and that's the Raiders. You know what? The Chargers' offense has not been consistent because its full potential has not been out there, and the Raiders, now with Josh Jacobs there, I'm going to roll with them. Give me the Raiders to win there at Allegiant Stadium. But once again, Hank and I are going to differ. He's going to take the Chargers to win against the Raiders. So once again, we disagree on that one. And what should be another interesting game. That was one of the tougher games to pick too, and you're pretty much Nick just picking it straight up because it's only a 1-point spread. But I'm gonna take the Raiders here, who seem to be doing a little something special. Again, don't take the team with the better coach because there is no better coach in that matchup. Just take the team whose offense has been more consistent. That's the Raiders against the Chargers. Nick, it's a Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Melissa Stark special on Sunday Night Football on NBC. As the Indianapolis Colts travel down to Big D to take on Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, and the Cowboys laying 10.5 at AT&T Stadium.
All I'm going to say is, what? On Sunday Night Football? What? I mean, what were they thinking? How are you not flexing this game out of Sunday Night Football? It's so bad. This doesn't really affect the standings in any way. I mean, maybe for the Cowboys it does if they lose a game, but God, wait a minute. So that means we're going to see Jeff Saturday on Sunday Night Football?
That is correct.
Oh, my God. You know that they're going to make headlines out of that like all week, right? Oh, how did he become the coach? He was an ESPN analyst. I'm like, yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are going to win. And I think I said this on ETB also. Usually I'm a little bit afraid of the double-digit line. It was actually 11 when we did it. So it dropped half a point. This is the one time I actually would take the cover here. So Cowboys cover.
Yeah, I'm not scared by that line. I wasn't scared with the two big lines last week, and they both worked out here. I think there's a couple of reasons why I think this game wasn't flexed. Number one, it's the Cowboys, and I think you've said that too. And number two, maybe they're allowing me to go to bed early since they know I've got to be up real early, and we're going to be so exhausted, and because we're going to be so drained really from what was going to be an unbelievable 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock window. As far as this game goes, you know what? You watch Carrie Underwood's intro, you watch Tirico and Collinsworth do their little pregame thing, you watch Melissa Stark's original first report, you watch the kickoff. and then you go to bed. Dallas by 17 over the Colts on Sunday night.
Wow.
That's the play here. I'm not worried about the 10.5. I think they roll in this one on Sunday night. And Hank will agree with me on this one. He is also taking the Cowboys to win and cover on Sunday night. It's a Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salter special on Monday Night Football on ESPN. This is a huge game in the NFC South. No, seriously, it is a huge game in the NFC South. It is the New Orleans Saints taking on Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Bucs are a 3.5-point favorite at Raymond James.
I mean, it's funny. Like, the way you said that is the way it actually is a big game in the NFC South, because again, the Bucs are 5-6 at the top of the division. That whole division is a dumpster fire. I mean, after the Saints and the Bucs, no one cares about the rest of the teams. I mean, the Panthers are a joke.
And only a game out, though.
What?
And only a game out, though.
And who was the other teams in that division? I'm forgetting.
Falcons.
The Falcons, who were kind of up and down. If they would actually win games, they would actually be leading this division right now. The Bucs kind of embarrassed themselves last week, losing to the Browns. You can't lose to one of the worst defenses in all of football. You can't do it. I love how Brady came out on his Sirius XM show and basically said, well, I'm taking it on the chin. Okay, that doesn't really help you win games, but I think they're going to be angry. This is a case of you lost to the Cleveland Browns. You have to win. Cover.
To me, it's also a play that the Saints just are not a complete team. They can't put together a complete game, and they make way too many errors. And also, do you trust Andy Dalton in prime time on the road? I don't.
Absolutely not.
Only laying 3.5 in this spot. I agree with you. I think, God, see, I say that though, and the Tampa Bay always finds a way. But
the Saints are such a mess, though.
Yeah, when it seems like they solve one problem, then another one comes up here. I'm going to take Tampa to minus the 3.5 and make them win and cover here on Monday night. But Hank is going to roll with the Saints plus the 3.5. There's one more difference this week, so he's going to take the Saints plus the 3.5, and I'm going to roll with the Bucs on Monday night down there in Tampa Bay. Well, as I said, Hank and I disagreed on a lot. There's a lot of games that can go either way, though. It's been that kind of week, and we will find out here as the month of December is underway. A critical month, obviously, here as we roll down the stretch of this National Football League season. A lot of good games this week, a lot of games with interesting storylines. Of course, Hank and I will react to all of that coming up on Tuesday on episode 35 of Game On. And, of course, we'll also have our final college football playoff rankings coming out. Those are going to be dropping on Sunday starting at noon Eastern. So while you watch your NFL, you'll have your college stuff coming across. And, of course, also the Major League Baseball winter meetings are starting up. And also the latest sports news that breaks. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening. So as we roll down the stretch here of 2022, the news just never stops. So, Nick, thanks for filling in again today.
Yeah, and also just some injury updates came in as well for some teams. Brandon Cooks and Derek Stingley Jr. both out for the Texans. So it just makes our pick look even better.
Okay, I feel a little comfortable now there.
Robert Quinn is out with a knee injury. So,
okay.
And then David Bakhtiari out for the Packers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
With an appendectomy.
Oh, wow. And Rodgers is off the injury report, which is not really a surprise. I mean, he's going to keep playing until, he can't play anymore pretty much. And the interesting thing will be once the Packers do get officially eliminated, that's when the fun really begins there in Green Bay to see what happens.
Also, just some quick reminders as well. When is the last show for the year for you guys? It would be the 13th.
We have 2 more weeks, 2 more shows before we get into our best ofs. And I know some people I spoke with loved the crossover event that we had with you guys over there at Empty the Bench. We will do another Empty the Bench Game On crossover. We'll probably do 2 more of those before the NFL.
You'll probably get 2 in a row, actually, Christmas and New Year's week, probably.
Absolutely. And so we will still have, and we'll also have we'll have at least one more Monty moment on college football that's coming up next week as well. So best thing to do, folks, is to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB network. Subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when all of our content's going to be out. Of course, our social media channels as well, at Game On ETB on Twitter and Facebook. GameOn_ETB on Instagram, and of course, ETB Network, ETB Sports on Twitter as well. And where you can also find our personal handles there. So much happens as we come down the stretch of 2022 and ring in 2023. In some ways, Nick, we are just getting started. So for Nick Mortensen and Hank Indictor, I'm Johnny Montalbano. Enjoy your football weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week.